is pretty tough to believe, but 2025 Sundance is almost here. The lineup has been dropped, so I'm going to run through some of the films, 10 of them that certainly jumped out at me. Some I was aware of, some I was not. Of course, Sundance, the greatest films, or many of the greatest films, are the complete unknowns. That's what makes it such a special festival, but these are 10 that you'll likely be hearing about in the coming months. First, we have Atropia from director Hailey Gates, first-time feature director, as many on this list are. It stars Chloë Sevigny and Alia Shawkat. Of course, Sevigny has been in so many acclaimed films, and she is an actress who is willing to take on some challenging or different roles. Shawkat, most folks know from Arrested Development, but is also obviously a very successful actress in her own right. The film is rooted in the director's series of short films that she has created in years past. Essentially, it looks at a role-playing military facility, and so we have a young aspiring actress who falls in love with a soldier who is cast at this facility as an insurgent. So the film follows this kind of relationship and blurs the lines between reality and fiction. Next, we have Sly Love, aka The Burden of Black Genius. This one comes from director Questlove, who, of course, is known for his work in the music world, but also directed Summer of Soul, one of the best documentaries in the last 5 years or so. This is another film that looks at Black excellence, that is coming from that point of view, and I love what Questlove is able to do by bringing his musical background and knowledge, and then combining that with his artistry and his direction to be able to craft these musical documentaries from a Black perspective. And I'm certainly looking forward to this one. It follows the life and legacy of Sly and the Family Stone, and it looks at the band's rise and their influence, and then ultimately their fade out as well. Third, we have The Wedding Banquet. This one comes from director Andrew Ahn, who is not super well known. I know him for his film Driveways, which was a 2019 film. I believe that was a super quiet, slow, meditative, restrained film, and showed to me his filmmaking chops, his ability to understand what is important to show and how you can show it through subtlety. The Wedding Banquet seems to be a little bit less subtle. It stars Lily Gladstone making what would appear to be her largest role since The Killing of the Flower Moon. She's been in several other pictures, but this one has the potential to really catapult her into the spotlight again. Alongside her, we have Kelly Marie Tran and Bowen Yang, and this film is a romantic comedy following Min, who essentially proposes a green card marriage to his friend Angela to help fund in vitro fertilization for her partner, Lee. But then they are presented with a very lavish Korean wedding banquet, which kind of throws a wrench into their plan. Again, as I mentioned, seems to be quite a bit different from Driveways in terms of tone, but sticking to kind of Asian American cultural dynamics, it appears. This is actually a remake of Ang Lee's 1993 film, and even more interesting is that this film was co-written by the same person who co-wrote the original. Next, we have Jimpa, at least I think that's the pronunciation, from director Sophie Hyde, who most recently directed the film Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, which was a pretty great kind of sex worker comedy. This film stars the wonderful, the brilliant, the terrific Olivia Colman. Whenever you see her name, you know she has about a 25% chance to land an Oscar nomination for that particular role. So we'll see how the reception for this film is. I should also mention that she stars alongside John Lithgow, so it's a pretty stacked cast at the top. The film follows a family with some interesting characters. We have a teenager kind of connecting with her grandfather, and then some secrets of the family are exposed, and they'll have to deal with that before he passes. It seems to really be an exploration of kind of these multi-generational family dynamics and different identities and different worldviews kind of coming together. Next, we have The Thing with Feathers. This comes from director Dylan Southern, who admittedly I'm not too familiar with. Most of his work has been in kind of the music documentary world, and he also directed a comedy special for Aziz Ansari a decade ago, but this one stars Benedict Cumberbatch, and obviously that name in itself immediately garners a lot of attention. The Thing with Feathers is a drama kind of exploring grief, and it follows a father who has to deal with the sudden passing of his wife. But as he deals with this grief, there is this presence that emerges known as Crow, who, of course, is this kind of symbolic representation of grief, and Crow begins kind of stalking the family, not letting them be, not leaving them in peace, and the film explores this kind of process, this rocky process of grief and moving on. It is an adaptation, originally a novel. It was also a play. I believe the novel was originally titled Grief is the Thing with Feathers. So it has a history, a track record of success, and I'm hopeful for the film adaptation. We also have Kiss of the Spider Woman from director Bill Condon, who is known for a few different things. He directed the Twilight series, and he's also won an Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay back in the 90s for Gods and Monsters. This cast is led by Jennifer Lopez, who is kind of in a little bit of a renaissance. It appears really making her mark again in the last 2 years. The film is set in South America in a prison, and it follows two prisoners as they kind of come together and form a friendship that neither of them expected to begin with. It's an adaptation of a 90s stage musical, and it seems to give Jennifer Lopez a real opportunity to shine here. We also have one of the most interesting or potentially interesting films of the year in Bubble and Squeak. This comes from new emerging first-time feature director Evan Twohy. I am not super familiar with him, but I am loosely familiar with this script. So Bubble and Squeak was a script that was on the Blacklist a few years ago, which is essentially a list of the best unproduced scripts that are kind of floating around. So there's been some buzz, albeit in kind of the niche corners of the internet, about this potential script. The script is quite absurdist in its humor, which I'm often drawn to. It follows two newlyweds who are honeymooning in a fictional country, and then they're accused of smuggling cabbages into the country, and they have to deal with the repercussions of this. Again, an absurdist construct for sure, but the script has rightfully received a lot of praise. There's some elements of surrealism here, which is something that I'm also drawn to, and is kind of a tale, an exploration of identity, of interpersonal dynamics, and of understanding what you really need or want from a relationship. We have another really interesting potential film here in Bunnylovr. This comes from first-time director Katarina Zhu, who is also starring in the film alongside one of my favorite working actors right now, Rachel Sennott. She just seems to absolutely crush everything that she does as an actor, writer, and director, and I really do see her as being one of the next big kind of indie stars of her generation. The film follows Katarina's character as a cam girl who is dealing with a very toxic relationship that she has with a client while simultaneously trying to reconnect with her father. It's certainly a more modern tale of kind of identity, of the different elements of our lives that are pushing and pulling us in various directions. But from all of the kind of initial information that I've heard, it seems to be a really emotional story, and I'm looking forward to it. We also have Love Brooklyn from first-time feature director, another one, Rachel Holder. It stars the wonderful, the amazing Andre Holland. His performance in Exhibiting Forgiveness, a Sundance film from last year, which I just got an email about last week that it is going to get a limited release in January. Super excited for that. Exhibiting Forgiveness is one of the most underrated films of last year's Sundance. But anyway, and Andre Holland, amazing actor, and with him kind of at the forefront of this cast, I have confidence. It follows 3 different Brooklyn residents who are kind of going through life, career struggles, love, etc. These very, at times mundane, but human experiences. I'm always particularly interested in these very grounded stories of real humans, and this is what Love Brooklyn seems to be, an ode perhaps to the city, but also just an exploration of different humans trying to navigate life. Last but not least, we have Opus. This comes from Mark Anthony Green, who is most known for being the GQ style guy. He has a column basically where men write in and ask him questions about style and fashion, and he gives them advice. He is another first-time feature filmmaker, and while you never know how a new director is going to handle this filmmaking process, it's probably going to look good. He clearly has an eye for aesthetics, so you can probably check that box off. It has already been picked up by A24. They didn't produce the film, but they will be distributing it. So that's a strong sign from a Sundance selection that it already has distribution from probably the leading indie distributor, at least in this horror genre, which is what this film is. There's a super strong cast here led by Ayo Debris. There's also John Malkovich and Juliette Lewis. So cast is in good hands. The aesthetic is probably going to be solid, and the plot seems really interesting. So it follows a writer who is invited to this secluded compound of an old pop star who had vanished supposedly several decades earlier. And this writer is brought into this very twisted scenario with some devoted fans and other journalists, and stuff goes down. From what I can gather, it is, yes, a psychological horror, but it's also very much a social commentary on Hollywood, on the entertainment business as a whole, and this kind of obsession with fame. I'm sure that there are many, many, many that I missed, and many more that will emerge as the festival rolls out, but here are at least 10 that you'll probably be hearing more about. If you liked the video, thank you. Appreciate it. You're the best. Like, comment, subscribe, and watch the next one when it comes out. Cheers.